In the spring of 1834, somewhere deep within the rolling hills of central Virginia, a discovery was made that would challenge everything people believed about human nature. Beneath what appeared to be an ordinary farmhouse, 47 children were found chained in a hidden underground prison. They were between the ages of 6 and 16. None of them resembled each other. None of them spoke the same language, and when questioned, trembling and broken, they whispered only one name: Mother Sullivan. The official report, later buried in the Henry O. County Archives, described scenes so disturbing that several officers resigned within days. But what truly haunted investigators was not just what they found, it was how long it had gone unnoticed. The small farming community of Millbrook was quiet, predictable, and deeply trusting. Families lived simple lives. They worked their fields, attended church on Sundays, and gathered at the general store to exchange news. In a place like this, strangers were noticed, but neighbors were trusted. The Sullivan farm sat just beyond the edge of town. To anyone passing by, it looked ordinary, almost forgettable. A white wooden farmhouse, a red barn, a few outbuildings, and acres of fertile land stretching into the distance. Ezra Sullivan had purchased the property years earlier, using inherited wealth from his father's tobacco business. He was known as a reserved man, not unfriendly, but distant. His wife, Constance Sullivan, was the opposite. Soft-spoken, polite, charitable. She attended church when she could and often spoke about the importance of helping those less fortunate. When neighbors asked about the occasional glimpses of children near the property, she offered a simple explanation. "They're orphans, family from Pennsylvania, just here temporarily." In a time when illness and death were common, no one questioned it. In fact, they admired her for it.
There were, however, small details that didn't quite fit. The general store owner noticed that Constance purchased unusually large amounts of food, far more than 2 adults would need. Flour, cornmeal, salt pork, medicines, always in bulk. When asked, she smiled gently. "The children eat well," she would say. At night, some neighbors reported seeing lights burning late into the evening. Sometimes faint sounds echoed across the fields. Hammering, movement, once something like crying. But in a quiet town, explanations were easy to accept. Old houses made strange noises, children could be restless, and the Sullivans were good people, weren't they? Even the local doctor, Dr. Whitfield, never suspected anything unusual, though in hindsight he would regret it deeply. He had been called to the Sullivan farm multiple times for sick children, yet he was never allowed to see them. Constance would describe symptoms instead: fever, weakness, coughing. "They're frightened," she would explain. "Strangers upset them." The doctor complied. It seemed reasonable at the time. Everything began to unravel during a harsh winter in early 1834. On a freezing night in February, a traveling merchant named Jacob Stern sought shelter at the Sullivan farm during a snowstorm. The Sullivans allowed him to stay, but something felt wrong. They were nervous, quiet, distracted. Their eyes shifted at every sound. That night, as Stern tried to sleep in the parlor, he heard something beneath the floor, faint, muffled, crying. The next morning, Ezra dismissed it. "Just the wind," he said. Stern left, but the unease stayed with him.
Weeks later, a young Irish girl named Mary Flynn arrived at the farm. She had been separated from her family during travel and needed shelter. Constance welcomed her inside. She was never seen again. Her disappearance was reported, but in those days missing persons often vanished without trace. No one connected it to the Sullivan farm. Not yet. The turning point came on April 2nd. A local farmer named William Hutchinson was hunting near the Sullivan property when he heard something that froze him in place. Screaming. Not playful cries, not childish noise, but raw, desperate screams. He crept closer, hiding behind trees, watching. The sound came from beneath the house. Then he saw Ezra emerge from a cellar door, glancing around nervously before disappearing back inside. Hutchinson didn't hesitate. This time, he reported it. Sheriff Benjamin Crawford initially dismissed the claim as rumor, but Hutchinson insisted. Reluctantly, Crawford agreed to investigate. On April 8th, he and his deputy arrived at the Sullivan farm. Constant greeted them warmly, calm, composed. She offered coffee, explained the situation, repeated the story about orphaned children. Everything seemed normal, until the deputy stepped outside. Behind the house, he found it, a cellar door, locked with chains, 3 heavy padlocks. The wood was scratched, deep, desperate marks carved from the inside. When he told the sheriff, everything changed. Crawford demanded to see the cellar. For the first time, Constant faltered. Her hands trembled, her voice cracked. "It's not safe," she said. "There's nothing there." And then they heard it, a weak voice from beneath the floor. "Help."
The officers forced the door open. What greeted them was a smell so overwhelming it made them stagger. Decay, filth, suffering. The basement stretched far beyond the house itself, a network of chambers carved into the earth. And inside were the children, chained, starving, broken. 47 of them. Their eyes were empty, their bodies frail. Some barely moved, others didn't react at all. It was as if hope had been drained from them completely. As the investigation unfolded, the full horror became clear. This was no act of misguided charity. It was a system, a carefully constructed prison. For over 20 years, children had been brought to the Sullivan farm. Some were orphans, some were runaways, others had simply vanished. They were bought, tricked, kidnapped, then locked underground. Records found in the basement told the story in chilling detail. Names, dates, notes. Over 90 children had passed through that place. Only 47 were still alive. The rest were found nearby, buried in shallow graves beneath the floor, their bodies hidden beneath layers of earth and lime. Some had died from illness, others from violence. Constance Sullivan had built more than a prison. She had built a lie so perfect that no one questioned it. She understood people, their trust, their assumptions, their reluctance to interfere. She turned kindness into cover and silence into protection. But the most terrifying discovery was yet to come. Letters, hidden among the records, correspondence with individuals across multiple states. The Sullivan farm was not alone. It was part of a network. Children were being bought and sold, transported, used, discarded. What began as a local investigation quickly became something much larger. Among the survivors was a girl named Rebecca, 14 years old, held for years. But unlike the others, she remembered everything. Names, voices, details. Her testimony exposed the scale of the operation. Other farms, other buyers, other horrors. Arrests followed. Trials began. Some were convicted, others escaped.
Constance Sullivan herself was found dead in her cell before she could testify. Officially, it was ruled a suicide, but many believed she had been silenced. For over 20 years, the screams beneath that house went unheard. Or perhaps they were heard and simply ignored.